I never imagined Christmas dinner could feel like stepping into a courtroom. But that's exactly what happened the night everything in our family cracked open. The snow was falling gently outside my in-laws' home in Vermont. Twinkling lights lined the porch, and the house smelled like roasted turkey and cinnamon. I walked in with my husband Michael, holding our 6-year-old daughter Gloria by the hand. I truly believed we were here to celebrate the holiday, maybe argue over politics like every other year, and then go home tired but full. Instead, I was about to be publicly humiliated in front of his entire family. It started the moment we sat down. His mother kept staring at Gloria like she was examining a stranger. His father cleared his throat every few minutes, exchanging looks with Michael's sister and brother-in-law. The air felt tight, like everyone was in on something except me. When we were halfway through dinner, Michael's mother slammed her fork down and said, loudly enough to silence the entire table, that we needed a DNA test for Gloria. Not privately, not in a calm conversation. She demanded it in front of everyone. She claimed Gloria didn't look like a real member of the family, and that the doubt had been eating at them for years. I froze. Gloria went still beside me. Michael didn't say a word, and that's when I knew. This wasn't a spontaneous accusation. This was planned. The room stayed silent long enough for the Christmas music in the background to suddenly feel mocking, like it was playing at my expense. I stared at Michael, waiting, begging, for him to speak up, to defend me, to defend our daughter. But he just looked down at his plate, shoulders tight, jaw clenched, as if he'd known this confrontation was coming, and decided ahead of time not to take a side. I felt heat rush up my neck. Gloria's small hand tightened around mine, and when I glanced at her, her eyes were wide and scared. No 6-year-old should ever hear her own family question whether she belongs. I asked his mother what on earth she was talking about. She lifted her chin, acting like she was the victim. She said she had concerns, that Gloria's hair was too dark, her eyes didn't match Michael's, and that genetics don't lie. She accused me of deceiving their family and said they deserved the truth. Then Michael's father chimed in, saying it was only fair and that refusing would look suspicious. His sister nodded along, adding that she had always wondered. It was a coordinated attack, and they didn't even try to hide it. I told them to stop. I told them they were humiliating me and hurting a child. But they didn't care. They kept pushing, kept insisting, kept using that same cold logic. If I had nothing to hide, why not take the test? Michael still didn't say anything. At that moment, something inside me cracked. Not from their accusations, but from realizing I was completely alone at that table. And the worst part, this was only the beginning. I wish I could say I grabbed Gloria and walked out right then, but shock can freeze you in place more effectively than fear. I sat there, heart pounding, while my in-laws dissected my daughter like she was some questionable artifact, instead of a living, breathing child who adored them just a week earlier. When Gloria's lip began to tremble, I finally snapped back into myself. I pushed my chair back and said the dinner was over for us. Michael looked up then, startled, like he'd just realized the damage being done. But he still didn't defend us. Not once. He just whispered, "Let's talk about it later," as if this was a minor disagreement, not a public character assassination. I lifted Gloria from her chair, and she buried her face in my shoulder, trying not to cry. My mother-in-law followed us to the foyer, saying we were overreacting. I told her that no sane person would ever demand a DNA test in front of a child. She replied that a real mother would want the truth known. That line burned like acid. Outside, the December air was freezing, but it felt cleaner than anything inside that house. I strapped Gloria into her car seat, my hands shaking, and saw Michael standing in the doorway, torn between staying with his family and coming with us. He stayed. As we drove away, Gloria quietly asked me if her grandparents didn't love her anymore. That was the moment fury replaced humiliation. They hadn't just attacked me, they wounded my child. I promised her she didn't need to worry, that none of this was her fault. But I didn't know then just how far my in-laws were willing to go, and how quickly everything would get worse. For a few days, things stayed tense but quiet, at least on the surface. Michael kept insisting that his parents didn't mean it like that, and that taking a DNA test would solve everything faster. I refused. Not because I had anything to hide, but because compliance would validate their cruelty. But the more I pushed back, the more restless Michael became. His calls grew shorter, his nights later. Even Gloria noticed, asking why Daddy didn't want to eat dinner with us anymore. One Thursday afternoon, I came home from work to find the front door cracked open. Panic hit me instantly. I rushed inside, calling Gloria's name. Her backpack was still by the couch, her shoes were in their spot, but she wasn't there. I tore through the house, heart slamming against my ribs. When I reached her bedroom, the sight made the world tilt, the window open, the curtain fluttering, and her favorite stuffed bunny missing. I grabbed my phone and dialed Michael, barely able to breathe. He answered casually, but when I demanded to know where Gloria was, he hesitated long enough to confirm my worst fear. "She's with my parents," he finally said. "They just want to talk to her." Talk? They had taken her from our house without my permission. That wasn't a conversation, it was abduction. I told him to bring her home immediately. He said they would as soon as she's calm, implying that I was the one upsetting her. I hung up and called the police. My hands were trembling so badly, I almost dropped the phone. The officer who arrived took me seriously the moment he heard the words, "unauthorized removal of a minor." He asked for every detail: who had access, who had motive, who had already confronted me about Gloria's parentage. I told him everything. By the time the officers contacted my in-laws, they found them at their house, with Gloria tear-streaked, clutching her bunny, and insisting she wanted to go home. My mother-in-law tried to argue that, as concerned grandparents, they had the right to check on her. The officer shut that down so fast it even startled me. When they finally returned Gloria to me, she ran into my arms like she'd been underwater too long and could finally breathe again. But the image that haunted me most wasn't hers. It was my mother-in-law's cold, triumphant smirk, like she thought she'd just proven a point, like she wasn't done yet. After that terrifying day, I realized nothing would stop my in-laws unless I took control. Michael's parents had already crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. They'd made their intentions clear. Their obsession with Gloria's parentage was more important than her safety, her happiness, or the bonds we were supposed to share as a family. I could feel the tension pressing down on me, a constant weight reminding me that trust within this family was a fragile, broken thing. That night, I sat with Gloria on the couch, wrapping a blanket around her small shoulders. She was exhausted, still trembling, and whispered that she didn't want them to ever come back. I promised her she was safe. I whispered over and over that we would fix everything, that she didn't have to carry their doubts, their suspicions, or their cruelty. And in that quiet living room, under the dim light of the Christmas tree, I made a decision. The next morning, I called our lawyer. I told her everything: the accusations, the dinner, the attempted abduction. She explained our rights, the legal boundaries, and the protective steps we could take. Michael agreed reluctantly. He was still caught in the emotional web his parents had spun around him, but I knew I couldn't wait for him to fully commit. I had to act, for Gloria. The protective order was filed quickly. My in-laws were prohibited from coming near our home, our school, or even contacting us directly. I felt a small surge of relief, though I knew this was only the beginning. Yet, even with the law temporarily on our side, the question remained: would the accusations ever end, or were they determined to keep this family in chaos, using our daughter as the weapon? The tension didn't fade after the protective order. Every call from school, every knock at the door, made me flinch. Gloria, still recovering from the trauma, clung to me at night, whispering about her grandparents' words and how confused she felt. I tried to reassure her, explaining that some adults make mistakes, that love doesn't mean cruelty, and that her worth wasn't determined by anyone's suspicion. It helped a little, but the damage lingered. Meanwhile, my in-laws didn't disappear quietly. Their friends started sending messages, subtle and not so subtle, questioning my honesty and implying that Gloria didn't belong with us. It was an orchestrated campaign of doubt, and it began to wear on Michael as well. He started second-guessing our decisions, worried that everyone was watching, judging, and possibly right. I knew that only one thing could end this once and for all: a DNA test. I didn't want it to feel like surrender, but rather a way to protect Gloria from future harassment and to finally cut through the lies. Scheduling the test was a private matter. I arranged for a certified laboratory to handle everything confidentially. No one could interfere, no one could manipulate the results, and Gloria could feel safe throughout the process. The day we received the results, my hand shook as I opened the envelope. Relief poured over me instantly. Gloria's results confirmed, without a doubt, that she was my daughter. Not a word of uncertainty remained. The weight I'd carried for weeks lifted, like a storm breaking over a calm sea. For the first time, I felt truly safe, confident that no one could undermine our family again. The reaction from my in-laws was muted at first. I expected outrage, anger, perhaps an attempt to discredit the lab or the testing process. Instead, they were silent, the tension in their household palpable, when I finally visited Michael's parents to deliver the results in person. They flipped through the pages, checked the numbers repeatedly, their faces a mixture of disbelief and reluctant acknowledgement. I spoke carefully, not gloating, simply stating facts. Gloria is your granddaughter. This ends here. Any further harassment would have legal consequences. The words hung in the air like a final judgment. After that day, the family dynamic began to shift. Michael's parents, faced with undeniable proof, started retreating from their aggressive stance. They called less, criticized less, and began attempting to rebuild the broken bridges in their own way. Michael, who had been trapped between us and his parents' expectations, began to see the situation more clearly and supported our boundaries. Gloria, despite lingering fears, began to smile again, to sleep peacefully, and to speak freely about her feelings. It was a slow process, rebuilding trust after such an ordeal, but each small victory mattered. A holiday dinner months later was calm, with no mention of DNA, suspicion, or accusations. Gloria laughed at the table, reaching for her favorite pie, and I finally allowed myself to relax. Even after the DNA test, healing wasn't instant. Gloria would occasionally ask questions about why her grandparents had doubted her, and I answered honestly, keeping explanations age-appropriate but truthful. I explained that sometimes adults let pride and fear cloud their judgment, but that didn't mean they were unloving at heart. Each conversation helped her understand boundaries and reinforce that her worth wasn't determined by anyone's doubts or suspicions. Michael and I took the opportunity to reflect on how fragile family dynamics could be, especially when trust is broken. We realized that protecting Gloria meant more than just legal measures. It meant creating a stable environment, shielding her from manipulative behaviors, and teaching her the importance of standing firm against unjust treatment. We decided to focus on building positive memories, traditions that celebrated love and security rather than conflict. The weeks passed, and slowly, the chaos faded. Our home felt lighter, filled with laughter, music, and the simple joys of everyday life. We resumed visiting family, but on our terms, with boundaries firmly in place. Michael became more assertive with his parents, explaining that their actions were no longer acceptable. Gloria learned that it was okay to speak up for herself and that she could rely on both her parents for support. I felt a sense of empowerment I hadn't known before, knowing that I had stood up for my daughter when it mattered most. What had started as a devastating conflict over a DNA test evolved into a profound lesson in deep torment. I watched Gloria play with her toys, her laughter echoing through the living room, a stark contrast to the tension that had gripped us months earlier. Michael sat beside me, sharing stories from his childhood, and for the first time, I felt our family had reclaimed its sense of safety and trust. Our relationship with Michael's parents had changed permanently. While we maintained contact, the boundaries were strict and clear. They could no longer manipulate or intimidate us, and they had to respect our household rules. The DNA test had been the turning point, cutting through years of suspicion and demonstrating that facts matter more than unfounded fears. I realized that the ordeal had taught me more about myself than I expected. I had discovered an inner strength, a capacity for advocacy and protection I hadn't fully recognized. Most importantly, I had proven to Gloria that standing up for oneself is not only necessary, but vital, especially when the stakes involve love and safety. Gloria began to thrive in this stable environment. Her confidence grew, her laughter returned, and she started speaking more openly about her feelings. It was as if the emotional weight of the accusations had lifted, replaced with a newfound sense of security. I had taken a terrifying moment and turned it into an opportunity for growth, for learning, and for reinforcing the bonds that truly mattered. The real transformation wasn't just in Gloria, though. Michael and I grew stronger as a couple, united against a challenge that had tested the very foundation of our family. We began to communicate more openly, discussing fears and frustrations before they escalated. Each decision we made was now guided by the principle that our daughter's well-being came first, no matter the pressure from outside sources. This meant saying no firmly to his parents when necessary, and supporting each other when emotions ran high. I also documented everything carefully, every phone call, every message, every confrontation. Not out of fear, but to protect ourselves in case disputes arose again. It felt empowering to have evidence, to no longer rely solely on memory or emotion when offending our family. The experience made me realize that preparation and clarity are vital when navigating complicated family dynamics, especially when children are involved. Gloria noticed these changes. She saw that boundaries were respected and that adults could be held accountable. It was a lesson in trust, in standing up for oneself, and in the importance of clear rules. Over time, she began to articulate her feelings, asking questions not with fear, but with curiosity and confidence. It was as though the ordeal had accelerated her emotional growth, helping her understand both fairness and protection in ways children usually learn only slowly. Chris had seemed quite satisfying, but never more. She was almost wondering about a single drawing sound of the flat. She was casting a fire and a fear. The snow covered the streets in Vermont like a sparkling blanket, and inside our home, we decorated a smaller tree but with more love than ever. Gloria hung ornaments carefully, smiling proudly, knowing she belonged completely in this family. I watched her and felt a deep sense of gratitude. The previous year's turmoil had been exhausting, painful, and terrifying, yet it had also taught us the value of standing firm. Michael's parents were invited but under strict conditions. They could not make accusations or bring up past grievances. The rules were clear, and for the first time, they seemed to understand. That day, there were no sharp words, no insinuations, no demands for testing. Instead, there was cautious politeness. Gloria laughed freely, and I held her hand, knowing she was safe both physically and emotionally. I reflected on how quickly family dynamics can shift when honesty is enforced and boundaries are respected. It was liberating to finally witness a moment where facts, fairness, and protection of a child outweighed inherited prejudices and control. The DNA test had not only proven Gloria's parentage, but had also clarified the lines we would no longer allow to be crossed. And in that clarity, we discovered freedom. Freedom from manipulation, freedom from doubt, freedom to simply be a family without fear. Life didn't immediately return to perfect normalcy. Healing takes time, and wounds, even when invisible, leave traces. Michael and I continue to support Gloria through therapy, helping her process the emotions stirred up by the accusations and the abduction. We reinforced that her feelings were valid and that expressing them was always safe. We also emphasized that, although the situation had been difficult, it had highlighted the importance of speaking up, advocating for oneself, and relying on trusted adults. We learned to celebrate victories in small ways. A day without tears, a calm conversation with his parents, a moment of laughter shared together, these became milestones of progress. Slowly, our home regained warmth and security. Gloria's confidence flourished, and she began to thrive academically and socially, bolstered by the knowledge that her parents would protect her no matter what. By the time spring arrived, the tension that had once gripped our family had significantly eased. Michael and I had strengthened our communication, setting precedents that would protect us and Gloria in the future. The ordeal with his parents had revealed our resilience, our capacity to fight for what is right, and the profound importance of placing our child's well-being above all else. The experience left lasting lessons. Michael's parents eventually accepted the boundaries, though grudgingly at first. They learned that their obsession with Gloria's parentage could not override basic decency or legal authority. I took my friend Callie Davin to his son, and our home became a safe haven, a place where Gloria could grow without fear of being judged or doubted unfairly. We established family traditions centered on trust, openness, and emotional safety. Looking back, I realized that the confrontation at that Christmas dinner was not just a crisis, but a turning point. It forced me to recognize how fragile trust can be, how crucial it is to protect children, and how important it is to stand firm against manipulation. While it was painful, it ultimately strengthened our family unit. Gloria, once a frightened child at the mercy of her grandparents' suspicions, had become a confident, secure young girl, surrounded by parents who would always advocate for her. What started as accusations and abduction ended in clarity, resolution, and an enduring lesson. Love, truth, and protection are stronger than fear, suspicion, and control. Our family emerged, not unscathed, but unbroken, and stronger for having faced adversity together. Today, Gloria is thriving. Her laughter fills the house once more, unshadowed by doubt or fear. She talks openly about the past, asking questions and receiving honest answers without judgment. Michael and I reflect on the ordeal and recognize how much we have grown, not only as parents but as individuals who understand the importance of boundaries, communication, and legal protections. Our story has become one of resilience and triumph. The DNA test, once a source of humiliation, became a tool of liberation, proving not only Gloria's parentage, but also the necessity of standing up to injustice. Our household now prioritizes emotional safety, honest communication, and mutual respect. We celebrate victories, large and small, knowing that the strength we've gained will guide us through any future challenges. The memory of that first Christmas dinner will never fully fade, but it no longer carries the sting it once did. Instead, it serves as a reminder of what we endured, what we learned, and how far we've come. Gloria's trust, her joy, and her sense of belonging have been restored, and nothing can take that away. In the end, the ordeal transformed us. It revealed the importance of courage in the face of manipulation, of standing firm for the protection of children, and of enforcing boundaries even when it challenges long-standing family expectations. Our family emerged stronger, closer, and more resilient, having confronted fear and false accusations head-on. Gloria learned that truth matters, that she is loved unconditionally, and that she can rely on her parents for support and protection. As we celebrate future holidays, we do so with mindfulness, gratitude, and laughter. The chaos of the past serves as a reference point, a reminder of the power of standing firm, but it does not define us. Instead, it shapes a family that values truth, love, and security above all else. A family ready to face the world together, stronger and more united than ever before.